We'll start.
All right, I got the notice, recording in process. Well, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Linda Kruger and I'm an AARP volunteer in snowy, very snowy Juneau. On behalf of AARP Alaska, I'd like to welcome you to the fourth in our six-part brain health webinar series. And today we're really fortunate. Our guest speaker is our very own AARP Alaska State Director, Teresa Holt. So we're excited for you to join us today. Welcome, everyone. Uh-oh, I'm not getting my slide to start here. Okay, first, some Zoom meeting tips for those of you who may not be familiar with Zoom. And if you're familiar, please just listen along. Before we begin, mute your computer if you can. It's down in the left side. There's a little mute icon, and if there's a red line through it, then that means you're muted. And if you can keep your mute on your microphone muted during this session, then it keeps the background noise down and we can all hear each other. And then if you need to speak or say something or ask a question, you can always click on it and unmute yourself. The next icon is the video button, where you can be on camera or turn your video off. And if there's a red line through this button, you are off camera. We're asking you to please turn your video off today to save bandwidth. It makes the production a lot smoother for everybody, and everybody can see and hear the presentation. If you click the presentation or the participants button, you'll see a list of everyone on the call, and it will be helpful for us if you could rename yourself if you aren't logged in with a name. A lot of times if you log in on a phone, it'll have a phone number, and you can replace that with your name by clicking on the three dots just to the right of your name if you go in that participant list. Next is the chat icon. We'll be asking people to respond in chat. To use chat, click on the icon and type in the box and hit enter when you're done. And if you haven't already, please type the community that you're joining from today. Oh, I see we've got a Big Lake person there. You can also ask your questions in the chat. If you click on the reactions icon, you'll see that you can raise your hand. Use this if you'd like to ask a question verbally. And then we'll call on you when you see your hand raised. And Teresa will let us know if she's going to take questions during the presentation or if she wants you to hold questions till the end. So we're recording this program and we'll send out a recording and all of the links that we've given you after the program. So be watching for that in your inbox and you'll be receiving that. Oh, and I'm not making my thing go here. I think my computer's updating and I lost my, oh, all right. Now we've been asked to give a disclaimer that this session is intended to be informational only and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Oh, am I still there?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see you, but hopefully that's all working. You should always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified healthcare provider for diagnosis and treatment of your specific medical needs or for questions regarding personal health or medical conditions, and before you begin or change any treatment, activity, program, or dietary plan. AARP is not responsible for the consequences of any decisions or actions taken in reliance upon or as a result of the information provided during this event. The information that we cover today is intended to help people make informed decisions on how to live a lifestyle that supports brain health. So hopefully you get some good information out of this today. AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization for people over the age of 50. We have 38 million members nationally and 77,000 members in Alaska. So tell your friends, we will boost that up from 77,000. AARP's mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. To optimize their power, we encourage people to save for retirement, stay healthy and fit, including brain health, build strong relationships, and have meaningful activity. AARP works on aging issues for Alaskans over the age of 50. in 4 different ways: through advocacy, working on national issues like Social Security, Medicare, and prescription drugs. And at the state level, we're advocating for telehealth, a sustainable state budget, a senior grant programs, and healthcare. Educate through education on brain health, technology use, veteran services, gardening, fraud prevention, caregiving resources, and financial planning. Member engagement, through member engagement, we host social groups, movies, guest lectures, exercise groups, and many more events. So check out, there'll be links to check out online, more information on specific events, and check in your community for local events. Community action, we have community action teams or CAT teams in Juneau, Ketchikan, Anchorage, and Mat-Su, who are working to make their communities more age-friendly. So check out the CAT team in your community. But let's start with some good news. Until recently, the prevailing scientific wisdom held that the human brain was pretty much fixed early in life. Experts believed that at birth, our brains held all the cells that they were ever going to have. But based on today's research, the good news is that regardless of age, our brain is constantly changing and can make new nerve cells. We can do a lot to change our brain health and to improve our quality of life. Experts say that only about 30% of physical aging can be traced to our genes. The rest is up to us. AARP's Global Council on Brain Health has identified 6 pillars of a lifestyle that supports brain health: eat right, ongoing exercise, engage your brain. And if you've been listening the last 3 sessions, you've heard about those. Be social, today's topic. Manage stress, and restorative sleep are upcoming sessions that you won't want to miss. Today, Teresa Holt, our own AARP Alaska State Director, is going to share information on how being social on a regular basis can help maintain a healthy brain. Teresa has had a long career working with people with disabilities and seniors. Teresa's degree is in recreational therapy, and she started her career working at the ARC of Anchorage, then the Disability Law Center of Alaska, and then the Governor's Council on Disabilities. Prior to coming to AARP, she was long-term care ombudsman for Alaska. So she had a wide variety of different careers or jobs that have all, I think, led her to AARP and bringing all that experience and knowledge with her. Teresa started at AARP 3 years ago, working to improve the lives of the 50+ in Alaska. She's a caregiver for her mother, helping her with financial issues, transportation, and medical appointments. And Teresa loves gardening, skiing, and being outdoors on her boat or hiking in the woods. And with that, welcome, Teresa, and I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm just really excited to be able to share a little bit of information with everyone today. So as you heard earlier, we're not experts, but AARP has gathered those experts together and given us some talking points to share with you today. So we're going to go through and these slides and share some information. So the first thing I want to do is go through some of these myths or truths that are on the screen here, and I'm going to ask you to try and in chat find the chat button and tell me whether you think it's a myth or the truth. So married people can't be lonely. Let's see if we can get some people to pick up on the chat. Someone says that's a myth. Truth or myth? Most people are saying a myth. Well, it is a myth for folks who put that in. It's possible to be married and still be lonely. And we see this quite often when spouses don't share the same interests, or sometimes people grow apart, right? It's sort of the same idea that you can be living with a bunch of people and still be lonely. You can be in a crowd and be lonely. Let's go to the second one. Hearing loss can lead to loneliness. Myth or truth? Truth or myth, I guess I should go with my headline there. Truth, truth. Most folks are getting this one. So And the interesting thing about hearing loss is that it's so gradual that people don't realize that they are not hearing. I remember as my dad got older, he would always say, how come nobody told me we were doing this? And he had in fact been sitting in the room with us, but maybe he wasn't seeing that we were having a conversation. So it's interesting, hearing loss affects 1 out of every 5 people. And as we age, we notice that more and more. Every decibel drop in perception in people under 70 increases the odds of becoming lonely by 7%. So I know I've hit that age, like it's easier for me to listen on to TV when it's in headphones because I can hear better. You know, sitting on the plane yesterday, we just did a advocacy week in Juneau, and the little girl sitting next to me would talk so quietly, I just couldn't hear with all the background noise. All right, let's move on to the next one. Feeling lonely can shorten your life. Truth or myth? Myth. I think this has been in the news, so I think people have heard this. It increases your risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, can even reduce your life expectancy by 26%. And there's been some articles in the news recently that say it's the same as smoking cigarettes, I think 6 cigarettes a day. So, and it does affect your cognitive skills, and folks who are lonely, who report being lonely, have also show a greater risk of cognitive decline. All right, let's go to the next one. Loneliness is a normal part of the aging process. Truth or myth? We got sometimes, doesn't have to be. Myth. All right. Well, and I think it doesn't have to be is the best answer. It is a myth. It's not normal. It doesn't have to be. It's not true for everyone. We have folks who work really hard. And I think we all have to, as we age, work really hard at staying connected. It is natural that in general, as people age, their social networks shrink, right? Due to a lot of reasons, which we're going to go into. And so it's something that we really need to, just like when we look at physical exercise, it's also another thing that we need to look at to make sure that we are staying connected to people, especially, and we all saw this after COVID, right? It was very apparent that interacting with people really helps us stay happy and joyful. All right, the next one is being socially isolated is a choice. Truth or myth? People are putting in myth. And that's true. I mean, it is a myth. Sorry, that was a bad choice of words. Being socially isolated is not a choice. It has a lot to do with a lot of factors. Your health. The healthier you are, the more you're able to get out and choose the folks that you want to socialize with. It has to do with housing. You know, are you able to get out of your house? Where do you live? Do you live in a rural community? Do you live in town? It has to do with your transportation options, your income. You know, if you don't have transportation, you're no longer able to drive, but you do have income, you're able to get around. It has to do with your family. How healthy are they? How close are your friends? So it's not necessarily a choice. And then the last is people who struggle financially are more likely to be socially isolated. What do folks think? Truth or myth? Truth. We got a truth there. And that's true. Sort of the same things we just talked about for the last one. Where you live, how safe you feel in your community going out, your ability to access transportation, your ability to access healthcare, and how healthy you can stay because of your access to healthcare. So there are quite a few things that really do affect how socially isolated you are. So let's talk a little bit about what counts as being social. And there is a difference between social isolation and loneliness. Being physically isolated is different than being emotionally isolated. And not everyone with limited social connections feels lonely. Some people have lots of social connections and they're still lonely, and some people are not. So loneliness is really, I read a great description. It's the discrepancy between what you want and what you have in terms of relationships. So there's been all kinds of research, and it's not really clear whether it's social isolation or loneliness that causes some of these brain things. But I would say that we know for sure, so if you're socially isolated and you're lonely, then you're going to see some effects on your brain. The other thing, as we get older, it's really not the quantity of relationships, but really the quality. You know, when you're in kindergarten, you have a relationship with 30 kids, plus maybe your neighborhood kids. As you get older, those relationships just sort of shrink, and you need to look at the quality of those relationships. So when we look at in-person interactions, they've done, you know, some studies since COVID, and while online interactions are great, in-person interactions are actually better. But if you don't have any way to interact personally, those online interactions also count. And we know that folks watching children or grandchildren contributes to happiness. 72% of people who have that opportunity, either online or in person, it makes them feel happy. And I know that's true with my mom. She became a Facebook champion during COVID because she can see all her grandchildren and all her great-grandchildren and her children and know what each of them are doing. And that really makes her happy. And, you know, the old adage, you know, having a meal with somebody really helps build relationships. And so thinking about who and where and when we're eating with folks and what are our interactions. And, you know, my mom always had the rule, no TV during dinner. No technology during dinner is maybe more appropriate nowadays, but while we're eating, are we really connecting with folks? Pets. People love their pets nowadays. And there is research that shows 66% of people who spend time with a pet, whether it's their pet or just a pet, you know, they go to the shelter to volunteer, are happier. So I know, like, my mother-in-law loves her pets. My kids love their pets. I do want to have one little caveat, is that if you have a pet, as you age, you really have to be careful to watch, because pets are a fall risk. And so thinking about and knowing where your pet is in the general vicinity of you while you're maybe cooking in the kitchen or doing different things, make sure there's no issues with tripping. And then technology. So, you know, there's lots of ways due to COVID, and that's really the silver lining from COVID, is there's lots of ways for us to connect nowadays. You know, it used to be phone or in person, right? And then we got email. Well, now we have Zoom, we have FaceTime, we have social media. As I said, my mom tracks what all the grandkids and great grandkids are doing by seeing what was going online, you know, by watching them on Facebook. The other thing that is sort of a negative is this whole, and I don't know how many of you are streaming TV now, but when we switched from cable to streaming, we thought, oh, we're going to watch less TV. Well, there is a built-in mechanism to keep you watching more TV. And so we have to physically in our house think about how we reduce screen time and increase in-person time. Because quite often my husband and I are not streaming the same shows. I like the romantic comedies. He likes the action movie, military movies, much more violent, scary things than I do. And so, you know, even finding a show to watch together can be of some social value, but often we are trying to just cut down our streaming time. I don't know if anybody else has issues with that in their house, but it is streaming is not a great thing most of the time unless you limit yourself. So social isolation and loneliness, what COVID taught us is that there definitely are effects: decreased social connections, people feeling lonely, when we can't get out and meet with people in person. This last week, we were in Juneau doing advocacy, and the chance to actually, oh, thank you. I forgot to say about the snail mail. People are more and more loving to get cards and notes. And so, yeah, definitely reach out to folks you haven't talked to by snail mail. Oh, someone asked, what is the built-in mechanism for watching more TV? So I'm not sure how many folks stream, but the difference between streaming and cable is that you have access to watch shows. It's almost like when you were recording them either on TiVo or on your recording device, but there might be, 6 seasons of your favorite show. And what happens is you start to watch one, and often some of these platforms just lead you automatically into the next one. If you don't stop it, it'll lead to the next show and the next show. So you could watch, people have streamed a whole season of one. Yep, binge watching is what it's called. People have streamed a whole season. You might watch like 8 hours of TV, and just because it just keeps hooking you into the next one. So that's sort of what the issue is there. Let's see, where was I? So there have been several studies after or during COVID, and the study after study suggests that social connection and better brain health, including cognition and better mental well-being, go hand in hand. And that's from Sarah Lentz, who is the executive director of the Global Council on Brain Health. The health consequences from being loneliness are real, and the pandemic has laid bare the effect of social alienation has on adults throughout the country. So what is the data? What do we know? Well, what we do know is that 1 in 5 Americans over age 65 are socially isolated. And so that is one of the things here at AARP that we're trying to work on, is to offer some programs where people can connect and have some interaction while they're online, for folks who are not able to get out of their home, but also to offer up some things. For example, in a couple of communities, we're going to be offering a movies for grown-ups, where we rent out the theater and everybody can come watch a movie together. We have our community action teams, which gathers people in those local communities to get together. We have sometimes educational events. So like we have an Age Smart series where we learn about aging, and we bring people together and we eat dinner. So there's all kinds of opportunities to gather together. Another piece of data is that 46% of women age 75 or older live alone.
We have to go, Mama.
Oops, we got someone who's not on mute.
We'll get dressed.
Hopefully that takes care of it. So, I think just being really aware of that 1 in 5, that's a really high number of people. So, how we can reach out to people in our community, maybe getting them connected socially with technology, or getting them connected to a group in their community is a great way to alleviate our own social isolation by helping other folks get connected. So the effects on our mental and physical health. Mentally, obviously the most obvious one is depression, right? But you also see anxiety, stress, cognitive decline, especially in that memory and verbal fluency. And where we know that specific data to come from is the example of folks being put in solitary confinement in prison. There's been a lot of studies, and it's really very, very harmful to your mental health to not have any contact with folks. And so let's think about the people in our community, and is there a way for us to reach out to those folks who really just don't have any interaction? Meals on Wheels is often an elder who lives in their own home, their only interaction with people during the day. But there's also physical risks, elevated risk for a heart attack, stroke, chronic inflammation, obesity. People don't get out. So it is important for us to get out. And I just want to talk a little bit about how does this happen as we age? The health issues. The biggest one that I think people don't really think about is that loss of hearing. If you love to go out to eat, and then all of a sudden you're going out to eat and it's a very social event for you, but the background noise in the restaurant makes it so you can't hear other people, then you choose to go out less and less. A decline in vision, if you don't feel safe going out, or more importantly, and this leads to my next thought, is if your vision decreases and you're not able to drive, that point where people can't drive any longer really does affect their ability to get out. Changes in mobility. I see this already with myself. I am super cautious in the winter when I'm going out because I don't want to fall, right? Let's see, Janice says, Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska offers art links and a memory cafe on Zoom, and also in person at some locations around the state. So if you're interested in checking that out, you can connect, or you can just Google Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska. Let's see. Also, folks who are experiencing, the very beginnings of memory decline or depression, those mental health, they don't want to leave their house. So, for example, if you are having some beginnings of maybe dementia and you get out in your car and you can't remember, how to get back home, people are less likely to go back out. Oh, thank you, Patrick, for putting that in the chat. That's a link to Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska. And then we also see isolation happens at life transitions, retirement. You go from having all these work folks, and especially for people who work a lot of hours, retirement, then all of a sudden they have nothing to do, and they haven't, because they've been working a lot of hours, they don't have other social connections, right? Losing a partner is a big one. I know for my mom, after my father passed away, she stayed in her house for about a year. And then we moved her, she decided to move over into some senior housing. And it was a huge change in both her cognitive abilities, but also in her happiness level. She lives in a place it's easy to get around. She doesn't have to worry about stairs. And there's lots of activities where she doesn't actually have to leave the building that she's in unless she wants to, but there's meals, there's stuff for her to do. She's in charge of the gardening. And so it was a really good move for her. And also another transition is becoming a caregiver. And so if your spouse is declining, and we were in Juneau, and a couple of our volunteers who were there with us have now just recently become caregivers. And it takes a lot of work to be a caregiver, and all your social connections often decline because you're spending so much time being a caregiver. And I know Alzheimer's Resource also has some support groups for caregivers, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but I just wanted to throw that out. Transportation. So the loss of the ability to drive really does have a huge effect on people being able to get around. Alaska is not the best place for public transportation. So if you want to join one of your community action teams and work on making transportation for seniors better, that would be a great place to start. And then the last is just societal issues. So we know pandemic had a huge effect, and I see this in my own household, is pre-pandemic, we were having people over for dinner. We planned our vacations. We were out in groups doing events, doing different things. And we really still to this day have not got back to that pre-pandemic activities. I know Linda, who is our host today, told me that her dance group just got back together in person just recently. And so be thinking about, what did you used to do before COVID, and see if you can get back, if you feel comfortable, get back to some of those activities, planning those events. And then in Alaska, one of the biggest social issues is that we live far from family and friends. And so getting back into that travel mode, or even connecting with them on Zoom. So here we are. What can we do? First thing to do is think about, who do you like spending time with? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it your neighbor? Yesterday on the plane, I sat next to this young lady who was about 8. And it just reminded me that I really like to spend time with children. And so I am going to look at, how can I do that? How can I get back into maybe a tutoring opportunity, or maybe a Boys and Girls Club opportunity. And then if you think about who you like to spend time with, and plan and schedule some activities. So, in our household, like I said, we used to host some dinner parties. And so we're really thinking about, okay, let's start those things up again and start inviting some folks over for dinner. And then I think spending quality time. So turning off that computer, the phone, the tablet, the games, and doing, during COVID, we spent time with our kids and we played board games, which we hadn't done in a really long time, but it was kind of fun. So, and then think about, what are your interests, especially folks who have retired. This is your opportunity to do those things that you didn't do when you were working, that you've always wanted to do. Do you want to go back to painting? Did you want to learn how to cook? Did you want to travel? What are those things? Because it's important, as Linda said at the beginning, it's important for us to be financially secure, keep ourselves healthy, have something meaningful to do, and social contact. And so, maybe you can find something that's meaningful. I love to garden. And so, gardening is my life in the summer, and I connect with all kinds of people who garden. There's the Master Gardeners Club, there's other clubs. You can volunteer at the botanical gardens. There's lots of opportunities for me to do different things around that. And that's meaningful to me. I like to see those things grow. Faith-based organizations are just set up to be social, right? You gather together. They often have programs that help those in need. So whether you need help or you want to help folks, it's already ready set in that type of community. So check that out if that's something you're interested with, and reconnect, in my case, with your neighbors, or connect with people from your past. During COVID, both of my neighbors have tons of kids. And so we were like kind of, we'd wave at them, but we really didn't interact on a daily basis. So now we're getting back into that and actually spending time with our neighbors. Send letters or cards. We talked about this earlier. People really like to get letters and cards nowadays, instead of just the junk mail that you get. It happens very rarely nowadays. Use the phone, call up somebody. And I do want to talk about these 2 resources that we have here on the screen. The first is AARP's Friendly Voice, both in English and Spanish. You can call that number. You do have to leave a message, and then someone will call you back. And that's AARP volunteers across the nation who then call folks back and just chat. It's a friendly voice line. That's what it is. So you can either volunteer to be a friendly voice, or you can have someone call and have a chat with someone. And then there's also the Institute on Aging's friendship line. So those are 2 ways for folks who don't have technology. Almost everybody has a phone, and so they can connect with folks. And I'm seeing Patrick's putting all kinds of things in chat. congregate meals at senior centers. There's all kinds of different things there. So Patrick, I have not been checking regularly. Do we have any questions that I missed?
There's a question about technology and sort of how it's designed these days to affect the brain in ways that draws you in. And we know that there's algorithmic design features to social media and things like that. And I believe one of our participants was interested in hearing a little more about that.
Well, I'm not an expert on that, but I do know that Facebook draws you in and sucks you in. And it is scientifically based to do that. And so, I really say, limit your time, set a timer, and be secure, be safe on Facebook, and limit it to only those folks that you have chosen as friends. Let's see, Linda says random acts of kindness week, reaching out to friends and neighbors and strangers. Do we have a link to that, Linda? Or is it just something
I don't have a link. It just popped up this morning on my meditation tape that this is Random Acts of Kindness Week. And I thought, oh, what a great opportunity. And the example was, somebody with a big basket full of groceries, let them go in front of you in the grocery line. And, things like that are really simple, but they can make someone else's day who's having a bad day. And they're rewarding for you as well. So lots of opportunity for that.
All right. Well, great. So here it was a perfect lead-in question. So here are some online connections that maybe you have not heard about. And I think this really is, if you're on this call, or on this webinar, you do have some connections. Senior Planet, I think, is the world's best secret. I only learned about it because I work here at AERP, and Senior Planet became an affiliate of AERP. But they offer both. They originally started out to offer technology classes to help seniors get access to Zoom. And what I really love about Senior Planet is that the curriculum is designed for people who have very basic knowledge. And so it's not like, when my phone's not working and I hand it to my daughter and I say, this isn't working, and she goes, da, 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 and she fixes it and hands it back to me. That's not useful to me because I didn't learn what was wrong and how to fix it, right? And I want to say that, Senior Planet has tech classes if you want to learn more about Zoom, Google Workspace, YouTube, smartphones, streaming, podcasts, the Internet of Things. And if you don't even know what Internet of Things is, it's really all those things that connect to the internet nowadays. It could be your refrigerator, your thermostat, your camera at your door, your, the watch that you wear. That's the Internet of Things. But they also have interest groups. So there's fitness classes, there's creative groups. So if you like knitting, or you just want to get together with a bunch of artists, they have those groups. They have gardening stuff. They have pet lover groups. They have photography groups, book clubs, LGBT, wellness, meditation, and they also have classes in English and Spanish. So, and then they have support groups, or I'm sorry, social groups, things like there's a meditation group, there's a wellness group. So check it out. And all you have to do, if you don't want to type in that address, is Senior Planet, and it will come up. So if you just Google that through a search, use a search engine and search for that.
And I just
it
put
really
the link in the chat there
is
too,
amazing.
Teresa.
Pardon?
I just put the link in the chat for that as well for Senior
Oh,
Planet.
okay, great. So, I encourage you to look at it. What is important to note is that all the times are listed as Eastern Standard Time. So if you're going to want to jump on a class that's an 8 a.m. class, that's 4 a.m. Alaska time. So just watch that. And then I wanted to talk about, I love this picture in the top right-hand corner, because all these people are actually together, but they're not interacting. And it's usually young folks that we see doing that. Like my kids come over with their friends and they all sit online and they're all on their phones and nobody's talking. It drives me insane. But, so social media has value to a point. It's not the same as an in-person meeting. And we learned that we were down in Juneau, and Linda lives in Juneau. And so Patrick and I got to meet all these people that we have talked with monthly in person for the first time. And it just makes such a difference. But the good thing about Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or FaceTime is that you can connect with people who are far away. And it really does help keep in contact with those relatives who live far away. All kinds of stuff is popping into chat. So, and we have some online groups here. So Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska, I'm sure Patrick can find, well, he put that in earlier. They have caregiver support groups. There's also AARP sponsors a Fraud Watch Network support group for folks who have been victims of scammers. And that is by phone. Well, you can call, and it is an online support group. So, all right, I'm running out of time here, so we're going to move along. The other piece that I really wanted to talk about was, as we get older, we become more socially isolated, and where you live makes a difference. I already told you about my mom. She was living in her house. She still had her friends and her neighbor, who was also a big gardener, and they did a little business together. But once she moved into the senior housing, it really opened up her ability to exercise, eat with other folks. And she had really been feeling the loss of my father. And so it was really great. So there are all kinds of options nowadays. You can run a bed and breakfast and rent out a room, or do an Airbnb, which is sort of similar. Folks come and they just stay, and you provide them breakfast. There are, and I think there's going to be more and more of this as the baby boomers move along in their third act of their life. The opportunity to co-house or house sharing. So you gather two, or maybe, sort of like the Golden Girls, you gather 2 or 3 folks that and you all live in the same house and share the same house. Anchorage, I put Raven's Roost up here. Anchorage has something called Raven's Roost, and you can just Google it, but it's co-housing, and it's co-housing of all ages. They have built a neighborhood. People purchase their individual units, which some are connected to the main room and some are not. And then they have a main room where they share a living room and a kitchen, and they all live together. And it's all ages, and people with disabilities, people without disabilities. So that's a great idea. If you haven't heard of an ADU, or an accessory dwelling unit, it's what most people call like a mother-in-law apartment. But we have found that is a great way for seniors to stay connected. You can build, for example, an accessible dwelling unit that's age-friendly, and it's you could use it. It's on one floor. You can use it with a wheelchair, that type of stuff. And you could live there, rent out your house, get some income, or maybe your family would come and live in the big house and you live in the little house. Or it can be the flip of that. You're in your house and you need some care, so you rent the accessible dwelling unit, the small house, the tiny home, whatever you want to call it, to a caregiver, and they help care for you. So, or you can just rent it out and make some additional income. So that's a great idea. Senior housing, Alaska Housing Finance Corporation has many senior housing units that are for folks who are low income. Tribal housing, Cook Inlet Housing here in Anchorage has both low income and not low income. So there's all types. And I don't know if it's true in all communities, but in Anchorage, if you want to live in Cook Inlet housing, you don't have to be a Alaska Native. And then there are, as I discussed, I put up here Chester Park, which is where my mom lives, and it is it's like a condo, but everyone who lives in the building owns the unit. They hire the staff, they decide the cost, that type of stuff. So that's a really interesting thing, and I think we'll see more and more of these things. And then the Pioneer Homes, offer some independent living. In fact, it's easier to get into the Pioneer Home if you don't need very much assistance. And so that's an option. You do have to sign up and get on the wait list because there's a wait list for that. So Patrick, is there any questions that I missed in chat? Because there was quite a bit going on there.
I'm looking, I don't see questions, but I asked people to type into the chat what they do to be social, and there were some really nice submissions there.
Do you want to go through a couple? Let's see.
Sure. Volunteering was mentioned as one at local, let's see.
Look at that. Perfect for the next slide.
Yeah, volunteering with the Anchorage Park and Rec team, elementary school kids, how to cross-country ski weekly for 6 weeks. How wonderful. That's engaging with youth, building relationships with young people, and bringing younger and older elders together is really a wonderful brain health activity.
All right, well, that just leads right into my next slide. So volunteering, it does so many things. It provides a sense of purpose. It gives us a reason to get up and get out, get dressed, you know, make yourself look nice. We all saw that during COVID, or we're always dressed as nicely as we had been if we were out and about in the community. Keeps you mentally, you know, stimulated. It provides a sense of community. You make an impact. You can choose, you know, where you want to put your time, and it makes a real difference in the lives of either people or animals or organizations that are in need. So it really helps to connect to that community. Connects you with others, you know, you make new friends with other volunteers. We see that all the time at AERP. It was great to have we flew in 15 people for our advocacy week, and they didn't know each other. Some of them were from the same communities, and so they got to know each other. So they made new friends, especially if you're not really good at meeting new people. It's a way to find a place where you all care about the same thing and can connect with others. It keeps your social skills, you know, sharp. That, you know, working with kids, that reminded me yesterday, sitting on the plane, I had to really readjust my brain and use my social skills in a different way to talk to a 6-year-old. And so it was delightful. Gives you a sense of
Oh, sorry, Teresa. There's 2 others there that I thought were really nice to share. Scheduling group calls has been something that folks are doing together in one particular group, a retiree group doing weekly calls together, and coffee get-togethers, and then preparing meals to take and eat with somebody, to take and eat with parents or other family members. Sorry for the interruption, but I thought those were really nice.
Great ideas. Improves your self-esteem. You feel better when you're helping other folks. You have something to reach out and do. It's good for your body. I was thinking of so we do an Andrus Award, which was our leader, Ethel Andrus, and she was a big volunteer. And so last year I thought of the 2 guys from the food bank. So they're moving food, moving cans, got them up. You know, it's really pulling in all these things that we need to keep our brain healthy. They had physical activity, which helped them. There's some studies that say that, you know, giving to others actually makes you feel happier. So, and it engages your brain. You might be learning new things, doing different things, learning new skills, learning about, you know, we see that all the time. AARP volunteers start with us and they're like, oh, I had no idea all these resources and things to look at. So volunteering really can help you become more social and affect your brain health. And just as someone had said earlier, you know, intergenerational volunteering really has a lot of effect in a positive way. We know that seniors who spend time with children or grandchildren really do see, they just make you laugh, right? This little girl yesterday was so excited. We're sitting on the plane and she was so excited that the drinks and snacks were coming. And I thought, oh, I miss really seeing those little tiny kids with their excitement. And so there's lots of places. Rural CAP has across the state an opportunity to mentor children and to tutor them. There's CASA, court-appointed special advocates for children who need someone to look out for them. There are the Peace Corps for people who are super adventurous to go out and really make a difference in communities. And that often ends up being, oh, someone likes baking cookies with their grandchildren. Boys and Girls Club. I love this picture of the gentleman volunteering to be a cuddle grandparent at one of the hospitals. So there really are lots of opportunities, and it really is helpful for just your brain health, getting out, learning new things, big brothers and sisters. I thought I put, Boys and Girls Club, big brothers and sisters. Yeah. So there's all kinds of opportunities. Just really, what is it that you love to do? All right, other places to volunteer. So we have all kinds of things here. And what I would like folks to do is to put in chat, if you volunteer, where do you volunteer? What are some great places to volunteer in your community? We're seeing, I'll point out AARP has lots of opportunities. You can volunteer online for us. You can volunteer in person. I see food pantries. Senior centers are a great place to volunteer. There's also opportunities to volunteer in the outdoors, whether it's like gardening. Truth City Museum. I love that one. Listening to beginning readers at elementary schools. DNR,
I just shared
so
a link
Parks
to
and
Reset
Rec.
for the National Parks Program, volunteer program that has lots of outdoor recreation activities for volunteers.
Right. Places of worship, schools, animal shelters, teen challenge, I see. Arts Council, symphony, concerts. Ooh, music is another one that really stimulates the brain. So you could combine two pillars, music and social stuff. Tutoring, GED, English as a second language. That's something my daughter is getting into. She's tutoring English language learners. But there's really just a myriad of things. I used to do performing for the arts in Anchorage. So it was our art center, and they take retired folks to be volunteers. And so I'd get to see great shows, and I'd always run into people I knew. It was really fun. Visitors associations, that's another one. So Alaska Native Sisterhood does great activities in the community. No need to be Alaska Native. That's a great share. Thank you, Lillian. So there really are opportunities to think of other places. The other thing we would encourage you is boards and commissions. I know currently there are 2 seats open on the Alaska Commission on Aging board. For those state boards, you apply through, you can just do Alaska Boards and Commissions. You can search for that. If you can't find it, you can connect with Patrick or I, and we can get you on that. But there's also boards and commissions in your community. So there's usually like a commission on aging at the local level. There's your senior center boards. There's, if you love like the Nordic Ski Board, if you love trails, there are, park foundation boards. There's just all kinds of things. So again, go back to who do you like to spend time with, and what kind of things are you interested in? All right. So again, just whatever interests you. I think we just went through this. I'm going to click to the next slide. So this one's going to take a little bit of thinking, but let's combine some of the health pillars, right? So eating right, taking a class that gets you being social, learning something new. So you're engaging your brain and you're learning to eat right. That would be an example. Managing stress, taking yoga, that puts the physical exercise and, managing stress, and it engages your brain because you have to think about it. Katie put in Rural Cap Elder Mentor Program pairs older Alaskans with elementary age kids, right? The one I had a hard time combining was restorative sleep. I'm not really sure where that would be. Maybe hiking in the woods and sleeping in a cabin with some friends. I'm not sure. But it's great because if you do more than one thing, it really can boost your brain health. Can anybody think of any other great combinations? Where are we on time? Oh, we're running out of time. All right, I'm clicking through. All right, I'm passing it back to Linda.
Okay, I'm going to unmute myself and I'm going to start my video. And the rest of you folks out there, if you want to start your video and let us see your faces for the last 5 minutes or so, that would be great. We can become more of a real community online here. So AARP has numerous resources, and if you've been with us for the last few sessions, you're already aware of AARP resources, and they're available to everyone. You don't have to be an AARP member to go online on the AARP website and take advantage of these resources. We'll go over them just briefly. AARP.org/brain health has lots of information and videos for everyone. Anyone who wants to log on can enjoy these and learn. The Global Council on Brain Health has a report and a video for each of the 6 pillars of brain health that we're covering in this Zoom series. AARP members can also enjoy the Staying Sharp resources, including free cognitive assessments, brain games, videos, recipes, and much more. Let's see, recipes, we're hitting food, videos, brain games, cognitive assessments, all kinds of things in there to take advantage of. So check out those websites. Here are 4 articles on engaging your brain that you might want to check out. And again, you can either take a picture of this with your camera or take a picture of it with your computer, and we will send you both the Zoom and these links. So you'll be getting those as well, straight to your email. Remember, we'll be sending it out, and you'll see that real soon, either this afternoon or no later than Monday. So watch for it and check out these extra resources on being social. So what do you think? Thanks for participating in today's program. We hope you found it useful. Thank you so much, Teresa. It was wonderful. Teresa's brought up the poll. So let us know if you learned anything that you'll be using in your daily life and how you would rate this event. And then if you have any ideas for upcoming webinars, something you would like to see us do in a webinar, write it down in the chat and let us know what you'd like to hear about, or you think we should provide a session on. That'd be great. Okay, upcoming webinars. Our next webinar next Friday, February 24th at 10, will be on managing stress. Join us to hear how managing stress contributes to brain health and overall well-being. Learn how to lower stressors that affect your moods by getting outdoors, listening to music, laughing, just to name a few. You probably know what you do to manage your stress and lower your stress levels. You can find out about all of our events on www.aarp.ak. Click on the story titled "Take Steps Toward a Healthier Brain." That will take you to a website that has links for the 2 upcoming brain health webinars, as well as recordings of past webinars. Also, please share our website with anyone who you think might be interested in joining our webinars. Thank you, Teresa, for sharing your knowledge today. That was great. Thank you all out there in the audience who joined us today. We look forward to seeing you all at our next webinar next Friday on how to manage stress for a healthier brain. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.